quote, officially pronounced dead, they were still legally alive. Even though both of them obviously died within seconds of the crash, Paul and Donna were both still officially living until pronounced otherwise several minutes after midnight on Monday the 12th of September. Identifying the burned and mutilated bodies was not as impossible as has been imagined. If they had needed facial detection, they could not have done it, but Paul's car quickly revealed his identity, and the girl's suitcase had a letter from her cousin staying with a friend on Lesso in Mesocco, Switzerland. Apparently Donna was headed there. Reaching her parents wasn't difficult, but time-consuming with Swiss support. Police alerted her parents Wednesday morning at 5 o'clock as the day begins. Paul's father and stepmother, who'd been notified Monday, saw his remains but would not affirm that it was Paul. They didn't recognize his clothes. Nothing about the messed-up corpse looked undeniably like Paul. They finally admitted it could be him, but held the opinion that Paul had earlier loaned his Aston Martin to a friend. Investigators called Paul's dentist for x-rays, but they couldn't identify Paul conclusively due to his head injuries smashing his mouth. Searching for proof of Paul's identity continued quietly. The investigator assigned to the case had the decency to keep his assumptions from the press until he had legal proof, which he anxiously anticipated. Not imagining he could talk to a member of the band, he called others, without revealing why he wanted the information to learn how to reach the Beatles' agent. When at last he did reach Brian Epstein, Brian immediately went to the morgue and said he did not think the corpse was Paul. Brian was permitted to take a few pictures. He assured the investigator he'd have a positive answer later that day. That bought him a few hours to produce Paul. Meanwhile, Jane Asher too was called in. Under the circumstances of Paul predicting his own death and attempting to find some talented lookalike to replace him, Brian had discussed possible Paul imitators with his brother and a few intimate friends. One of them, who knew of my Billy Pepper albums, which covered Beatles songs, recommended me for the position. Having worked with me, Brian already knew me.
Douglas could be
singing
you
remember the remark of Mark Twain when a report got out about Mark Twain having been dead, and finally they reached him in those days, and he said, "The report of my death is greatly exaggerated."
I think that Paul said that almost those precise words.
When was the last time you saw your brother?
The last time?
Yes.
It was his funeral, I think.
Well, really, when was the last time?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Yeah, I mean, before I came, you know.
Oh, well, that was, what, fairly recently then?
Didn't look well, though, did he?